So I would like to pass the floor to Rod Jansen, our moderator and president of the EIP. Rod, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Carolina. Welcome, everybody. We've got a large crowd here. We've got a very interesting discussion. As Carolina mentioned, it's part of EU Industrial Weeks. And the thing is that there are local events, and this is one of the local events. Now, I want to point out for the EU Industry Days this year, there's a special focus on youth. And the European Commission, the European Union as a whole, is trying to encourage a younger generation of energy researchers. This problem is not going to go away early. And I just want to point out that we have Fabiola Tovar with us, who is you're going to hear much from her later about this, but we're really pleased to have her with us. Now, the discussion, this is on decarbonization of the energy-intensive industries through renewable energies. Of course, we're not going to just be talking about renewable energies, but the RE4Industry project is really focusing on that. And it's really important that we see there are many pathways to decarbonizing, and I think it's really important. It's also important that we hear from some of the people who are part of the process within the EU institutions, and we're really pleased that we have Tom Berendsen from the European Parliament with us. Tom has only been a member of Parliament since 2019, but I think he's learned the ropes. I think he understands quite well what's going on, and he's quite active in the ITRE committee, the Industry and Energy Committee. And Tom, I'd like to pass it over to you to give us a little introduction to energy-intensive industries in the framework of the EU Energy Industrial Strategy. Please, over to you, Tom.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Jansen. Thank you for the invitation. Hello from, I never thought I would say this, but sunny Brussels today, as you can see behind me. I'm pleased to be here with you this morning ahead of the EU Industry Days, although unfortunately it is of course still virtually. I today will discuss with you the outline that I have for my report, since I'm the rapporteur of the European Parliament on the industry strategy, which we think as EPP, but as a whole Parliament, think is a vital pillar next to the Green Deal pillar and the Fit for 55 proposals for industry. And today you will address an essential question that calls for a European response. What is needed in your sector to make the transition successfully? It's a crucial question that I also try to address as a rapporteur, because I believe that a Green Deal should not only be demanding more of industry, it should also be a roadmap facilitating industry to go through the transition and grasp the opportunities while doing so. Now, as a politician, I prefer seeing and experiencing the processes of the industry in real life to truly understand the challenges that are there. Just before the COVID crisis, I was able to visit a multitude of energy-intensive industries. But over the last months, I spoke with many of them again, but this time virtually. And that makes a huge difference for everyone from all sides of the table. Now, unfortunately, COVID showed us much more than only that we need human contact for truly understanding each other. Until recently, there was a strong belief that global value chains were untouchable. Shortages would never occur. We could count on every part of the chain. And this widespread belief was shattered by the new reality that we now have to face. We saw China and America first policies when it came to masks, medicines, and later the vaccine. And we are facing this reality not only in health, but in many strategic sectors. Take the current shortage of semiconductors with concrete consequences for many industries and for employment in Europe, or the energy crisis, which reminds us how we depend on imported fossil fuels and how it can be used as a geopolitical instrument. Especially in your industries, the consequences are severe, as energy makes up the most of your production costs. Now, another key example are the raw materials that are critical for the transition of our industry, such as lithium for the batteries, but also our dependence on magnesium. The essential question of today cannot be seen apart from these developments. So how can we become less dependent in a changing geopolitical landscape? That will be part of the report in the European Parliament. So my report will not only address the energy transition, but also the resilience of industry and how to maintain a competitive industry in the EU while going through the transitions. And for that, I think we need clear roadmaps per industrial ecosystem on how to get to climate neutral, what is needed to get there in terms of infrastructure, technologies and skills. And we need yearly monitoring of the ecosystems and transition pathways, monitoring of the progress in the transition, but also on the competitiveness and resilience of the ecosystem. Industrial policy only works when we adapt instruments swiftly to the needs of the industry. And we will need huge investments for breakthrough technologies, supporting infrastructure, renewable energy production, and much more. And we will call on the Commission to develop a toolbox with instruments to increase Made in Europe and increase Protected by Europe. Because if we demand more of our industry in the transition ahead of us, it is only fair that industry demands a level playing field while doing so. The ambition is to develop a true EU industrial policy that turns the Green Deal into a growth strategy that creates high quality jobs in the EU for our citizens. I believe EU industry has the potential to be the driver of sustainability, EU-wide as well as globally. We have all the tools to set this in motion. We are a prosperous continent, have many internationally competitive companies and industries, are home to world-leading universities and research institutes, and have a highly skilled labor force. When we unlock this, when we start developing, deploying, and exporting European innovations, we will effectively reduce our emissions, working towards the EU climate goals, while increasing the competitiveness of our industries and the creation of high quality jobs. The share of EU emissions in the world is 8%, but our ability to contribute to the solution is much more than 8%. And this calls for a spirit of cooperation, both from industries and governments. Some political parties like to blame industry and push them and the emissions over the borders of the EU, while other political parties fail to acknowledge the necessity of reaching our climate goals. Anyone who feeds these sentiments on both sides do not exactly help us to make real progress. Polarization and picking options fitting their political interests, they are not the answer to this complex challenge. So this much needed spirit of cooperation between governments and industries, it brings responsibilities. National, local and European authorities need to facilitate industry in terms of infrastructure, regulatory stability, reduction of the administrative burden, and a mission-oriented innovation agenda. That should be part of the deal in the Green Deal. This is why I plea for tailor-made agreements between industries and governments that make sure industries are facilitated to go through the transition. However, good cooperation is built on reciprocity. I do expect long-term commitment of industry to achieve the climate goals, invest in local societies, the local workforce, and their local environment. And that is the cooperation we all benefit from. For the energy-intensive industries, there is, of course, a strong external dimension. It is my belief that if we demand more from our industry, we should also offer protection to ensure a level playing field. An effective carbon border tax adjustment needs to be set in place. And in the long term, your competitiveness in a decarbonizing global economy will be determined by the capacity to deliver clean products. Thus, we need to grasp this opportunity and promote leadership in the area of low carbon industrial technologies. Member states and the EU should assist in establishing clear rules and providing sufficient and affordable renewable electricity sources to facilitate the needs. In addition, we require substantial investments in infrastructure for electricity, hydrogen, and CO2 networks. Simultaneously, we need to create a market for clean products. And I think governments can become a launching customer and stimulate Made in EU by adapting the public procurement rules. And with the right framework, we can ensure that our industry remains highly competitive and that others will depend on European innovations as well. In my visits and talks, it became apparent that energy-intensive industries face a variety of challenges, but that there is a great willingness to make the transition, to be part of the solution. And we need to treat industries as part of the solution, because we cannot be dependent on other parts of the world for the products and technologies that are essential in our economy and for our society of tomorrow. However, this requires to put in place a strong framework next to the Fit for 55 proposals in order to make the Green Deal work. And that is what we want to achieve with the industry strategy in the European Parliament, a framework on how to remain competitive throughout the transition. And it's time to make the Green Deal a real deal and turn it into the growth strategy for industries that it was promised to be by the European Commission. So I wish you all a great day with fruitful discussions. And I'm also very much looking forward to the transition pathways you discovered today and an answer to the question, what do energy intensive industries need during the transition to remain competitive? And I'm looking very much forward to our cooperation in the future. Thank you very much.
Tom Berendsen, thank you very much. And you're seeing some hands up there. I think what you've said is music to our ears. I think everything you've come up with. What's the timing of your report? What?
I'm tabling my draft report the 25th of February. Then it will be open for amendments by all political groups, even also by the rapporteur if we come up with some great ideas after. And we will agree on the report hopefully in June or July, together with the Fit for 55 proposals in the European Parliament, because we really consider this as a pillar next to the Fit for 55 proposals.
I have one question that's come up in the chat, and this looks at industry strategy in the broader context of the whole European Green Deal. How could the EU industrial strategy help to position manufacturing industries, including SMEs, as a key enabler of initiatives such as the renovation wave? We're supposed to be renovating 3.5 million buildings a year. Could we aim for a wider sector integration that can drive decarbonization of the EU and still ensuring competitiveness? What are your views on that?
Well, the answer is yes, we should make sure that SMEs play a role there, that we benefit from this renovation wave that will come up. I think a renovation wave is very interesting from multiple sides, because on one hand, it will hopefully lower energy bills of consumers directly. Hopefully it will very quickly make sure that we decrease emissions, but it indeed can also provide a lot of jobs. The big challenge there, however, will be how do we manage to have all the brains, all the hands, all the skills available to go through that renovation wave. And that is the big question throughout the whole transition, I think.
Good. I'm glad you mentioned jobs. It's interesting. I was quite involved in the Energy Efficiency Directive when it first came out in 2012. In fact, a colleague and I, we actually produced a paper on what would be the jobs, because in the negotiations in 2011, jobs, everything was jobs at that point. We didn't have so many glaring IPCC reports. It was before the Paris Climate Agreement. How much you mentioned jobs, so how much of a key driver is jobs right now? I mean, how much does it come up in the ITRE committee?
For me, it's an essential driver, and that's why I also address in the speech the fact that I think the deal should really, or the Green Deal should really be a deal for industry as well, and that it should be a growth strategy as it was promised by the Commission. Right. Because currently you see a lot of attention to all the demands we're putting on industry and all the new rules and to achieve climate neutral, which are very important ambitions. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we remain competitive. And why do we want to remain competitive? Because we want to keep the jobs of tomorrow in the EU. Right. And the only way we can do that is invest heavily in all the technologies and innovations that are necessary, really make sure that we are able to have clean and competitive industries in the European Union, and while doing so, protect our industry from competition on a global level with companies that do not have to meet the same demands. And I think that's essential.
I know we have to get on with our agenda, but I just have one more question to ask you, and I think everybody in the audience will want to know this. Are you going to have problems getting this through the ITRE committee in Parliament? I mean, how much can we help you?
It depends a bit on how many let's say difficult ideas I try to put in, but I think in general what I also feel with colleagues that there's a broad understanding of that there's a lot of attention to reaching climate neutral, but there's not enough attention to what industry needs to make that transition when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to breakthrough technologies, when it comes to faster permitting procedures, when it comes to, I don't know, a hydrogen backbone, those kind of ideas. But also the other side of the story is if I would table in a vague abstract story, I think I would have broad support, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to table a report with very concrete solutions. And as EPP, as European People's Party, we say this is part of the Fit for 55 package. This is the list that industry needs to go through that transition. And that's for us very important to also agree on the Fit for 55 proposals.
Great, thank you.
But please help in reaching out to everyone you have in your network.
Thank you very much. I hope you're going to be staying with us for the rest of this, because the first thing you mentioned in your first sentence was talking about the different sectors, and so we've actually got 4 sectors. Okay, there are big. So we're going to have to our agenda, but Tom, maybe we'll get you to come back in for a second if you feel a real urge that there's something that you have to add. Okay, so.
I would love to do that, but in 7 minutes I'm asked to have the same speech for some other companies as well, which I think is important. But please, if you are able to capture the discussion and have some concrete ideas, what you think you need, please send it to me so I can address it.
What we're planning to do is to produce some chairman's conclusions that we can actually that can be distributed to the different EU institutions, but also all the members of the ITRE committee, so that they can capture what's the essence of what we provide here, okay, and can help reinforce some of your. I mean, I'm with Energy Efficiency and Industrial Processes. We've done this in the past, produce these chairman's conclusions, and they can be quite powerful to sort of drive some of these ideas and to strengthen your position. Okay, I mean,
I'm looking very much forward to those conclusions, and I wish you all a very fruitful discussion today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. There are big challenges to decarbonize our energy-intensive industries, while at the same time maintaining our competitive position. We've just been hearing about this internally and globally, internally inside the European Union and Europe. And taking account of the COVID crisis and what has to be done for our industry, decarbonizing can take different pathways, even within a specific sector. And you're going to hear about this, whether it's the ceramic sector, the glass sector, non-ferrous, all of them. So today we're bringing together 4 sectors: glass, ceramics, non-ferrous metals, and aluminum. Sorry for not pronouncing it aluminium. I have a hard time doing that. Today to discuss some of the issues, And also we actually have our junior researcher who is actually going to be summing up at the end, giving us a few of her views of what we've been doing. And I've got 4 representatives. I'm going to give them each 1 or 2 minutes just to sort of introduce themselves and almost react to what Tom Berendsen was saying, because he covered so many of the themes. Magdalena Villabona from Ceram Uni, for the ceramics industry. What are your views, please?
Hi, hello, good morning, everyone. Hope you can hear me well. Thank you very much for the invitation. That's, of course, a pleasure to be here to discuss this topic, which is key for our industry, as for all energy-intensive industries. As mentioned, I represent ceramic industry, Ceram Uni, Ceramic Industry Association in Brussels, where we are a voice of ceramic producers at the European arena. Maybe first few words about the industry itself. It's quite a complex industry. We have many subsectors within the industry, around 9 subsectors that we represent. For example, these are wall and floor tiles, bricks and roof tiles, sanitary ware, tableware, also refractories, etc. Many of our members belong to national associations, but also companies. In general, we represent mostly SMEs. Around 80% of our industry is constituted from SMEs. So small and medium-sized enterprises are the majority. And we also represent 200,000 direct jobs. So it's a very job-intensive sector. In terms of our decarbonization profile, I have to mention that we rely fully on natural gas. 80% of our use is natural gas, 20% electricity. And the biggest decarbonization gains were already achieved in the past. Actually, in the 80s, 90s, the oil industry has shifted from using coal to natural gas. And this is when around 60% of these decarbonization gains were reached. But we are a very energy intensive sector still. Around 30% of our production costs are energy costs. It depends, of course, on the specific sector, but in general, we can say it's around 30%. The industry emits around 20 million tons of CO2 per year. Most of it is, of course, from fuel combustion, but also indirect emissions, around 20%, and 17% are process emissions. So we also have some process emissions, which come from the raw materials, and as you may know, they are most difficult to decarbonize, to abate. What we have done in the last months, we have reviewed our roadmap. Also, as MEP Berendsen has mentioned, it's important that all the sectors have their pathways, that they have their roadmaps. We have reviewed ours. The first one was published in 2012, and the most recent one, which I will also share with you later in the chat maybe, is been just published at the end of last year, in November 2021. Of course, we have set our new decarbonization target to net zero by 2050. And we have been defining the different pathways that the industry should follow. We have decided to include all possible options for the moment. We didn't decide for 1 or 2 options, but we have said that in equal terms, they will all contribute. So, for example, it's green electricity, but also green hydrogen and biofuels. These are the 3 main decarbonization pathways for our sectors.
Magdalena, let's introduce the others, and then we can come back to some of these other points. Okay.
Great. So I just to finish with, I wanted to mention that we have. I will share with you the link to the roadmap. But what is important is that there are many challenges. Also, we have described there, and we have tried to reply what are the preconditions for our industry to decarbonize. What are the challenges which are in front? And I hope I can also brief you more about it in the next round.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I really want to encourage everybody to use the chat. If you're from a different sector than what we're here, if you've got a roadmap, please put it on the chat, or anything that you'd like to say. We've got so little time. Everybody's going to be frustrated. There's going to be question, but we won't be able to do them all. So we'll try to do as much as possible here. But let's just go. Christian Leroy from the Aluminium Industry. What are your sort of initial comments?
Yes, hello, good morning, everybody. So thank you for the invitation. It's also a pleasure to speak today. at this conference, online conference. So I represent today European Aluminium. So European Aluminium represent the aluminium industry in Europe. So the whole value chain from bauxite mining, alumina production up to, let's say, recycling, including obviously smelting, so primary aluminium production, and as well the activities like rolling and extrusion, so transforming into profiles and sheet. Just a few words about the aluminium industry. Let's say very briefly, it's clear that from the 90s, we have reduced significantly our emissions. More than half of the emissions has been reduced. And we are one of the most, let's say, efficient region in the world. So about representing 1/3 of emissions per kilogram or ton of aluminium compared to other global level. So we are really advanced on that, but it's clear that there is still, let's say, task in front of us to decarbonize the value chain. And this was touched today about the challenges we are facing in terms of stable, affordable, clean energy. This is really the key points, and that I guess Nick will highlight these aspects further. But from my side, I am indirectly involved in the innovation hub of European Aluminium. So we see really innovation as a key enabler. It's not sufficient, but this is surely a key enabler, and we promote collaborative efforts with other sectors within the aluminium value chain, really to address that, to facilitate access to innovation fund, to the Horizon Europe. So it's really perceived as a key enabler. So we are quite active on that aspects. But I guess
thanks, Christian. We'll hopefully we'll get into the innovation aspect, because this is really important. You mentioned Nick Karametis. Nick, please, for the non-ferrous metals industry, Eurometaux.
Yes. Thank you very much for this very timely debate. I am actually the European Regulatory Affairs Director at Mytilineos. That's a Greek industrial company with activities in metallurgy, energy, and construction. And I'm also chairing the Energy and Climate Change Committee at Eurometaux. That's the Non-Ferrous Metals Association of Europe. So we represent aluminium, zinc, copper, silicon, nickel, and so on. Quite a lot of metals there. So today I want to avoid complaining too much about challenges and problems faced by our sectors, although as we speak, actually the aluminium sector in Europe is on the verge of extinction, basically. It's as a result of the energy price crisis, we've lost a huge amount of production capacity in Europe, which is being replaced by more carbon-intensive production elsewhere. But I'd rather focus on something positive today, an innovative regulatory scheme, which is called the Green Pool. It's designed and backed by the industry, and it's already been submitted by the Greek government to the Commission for approval. Now, if I have maybe 2 or 3 minutes, I want to go through the key design points of the Green Pool. Can I do that? Is it okay? Sure. Okay. So the Green Pool is about the electro-intensive industry stepping up to the challenge of the green transition, which is something MEP Berendsen invited us to do earlier. So we're claiming a leading role. Now, for the electro-intensive industries like ourselves, the main decarbonization challenge is to green up our electricity supply, right? So this is usually, however, overlooked in European policy. So renewable electricity is becoming competitive, but there are still key obstacles, and some of them are flagged by DGNR in their report of 2019. So the Green Pool is designed to deal with these challenges in the most efficient way. Now, under this scheme, electro-intensives will finance the addition of new and massive renewables capacity to the system through long-term PPAs. Now, given the stochastic nature of this RES generation and the huge needs for stable power supply by these energy-intensive industries, this matchmaking creates what's commonly referred to as firming and shaping costs. That's the extra costs arising when an electro-intensive industry buys and consumes renewable power. That has to be typically shaped into baseload. Now, an aggregator is picked through a competitive bidding process, and this aggregator pulls together the output of these new RES plants and undertakes the entire firming and shaping exercise, and then supplies the consumers with power. This pooling produces considerable efficiencies from both sides, production and consumption. And thanks to aggregation and, of course, the bidding process, the shaping costs are minimized. Now, as they derive from the competitive bid, these shaping costs are partly compensated by the state, and therefore we ensure cost effectiveness and proportionality. Now, the part which isn't compensated, it still burdens consumers, provides a strong incentive to reduce these costs by employing flexibility in the form of demand response, let's say, or installing batteries and so on and so forth. Now, according to an independent study, if the green pool is approved, this could lead to the deployment of an extra 4 gigawatts of RES capacity in Greece, and that would stimulate roughly 3 billion euros in RES investment. And it would decarbonize electro-intensives and enhance their global competitiveness. So from where I stand, this is exactly what we should be focusing on. Boosting industrial, green, sustainable industrial production in Europe. This is our best chance at actually sustainably contributing to the fight against climate change. That's the fight to reduce global emission. Tom Berendsen mentioned it already. The global demand for these commodities is rising sharply. And if it's not met by sustainable European production, it will be met, just as is the case so far, by extra capacity being built elsewhere. Now, I don't care how people call this. Some object to the notion of carbon leakage. It is certainly investment leakage leading to carbon leakage, and this must be reversed. That's what our industrial policy should aim for. And if we're honest about climate, that's what our climate policy should aim for too.
Okay, thanks, Nick. Nick, is there something you can put in the chat for people to? Is there something on the green pool that people can read?
Absolutely. I'm going to share a report by the German consultancy Nervis, which we worked on with them. And well, it's dynamic. It's evolved since then. The communication to the Commission has advanced a little bit. So, but the key elements of the green pool I'll share in the chat room already.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Now, this is a local event, and we've just moved from Athens. Now we're going to Germany. Christiana Nellis from the Glass Association in Germany. What are your views? Could you just introduce yourself and give some of your initial views?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm here for the German Federation for the Glass Industry. And I wanted to focus on some things that Tom Berendsen said and reply to them. I think we hear from a lot of basic industries, but basic industries are not like really basic. They're needed, they're of strategic importance, as Tom Berendsen mentioned. They're for glass products. We make high efficient glazing products for the renovation waves, glass wool. The glass industry makes special glass for the semiconductor industry and the glass wines to fight the COVID crisis. So we actually need the industry, and we need it here in Europe. It's of real strategic importance. There are glass fibers for digitalization, and the decarbonization comes through electrification. Nick, I can totally support your idea. We need cheap, green, competitive, long-term, stable energy prices and electricity prices. We need it, and we need a stable regulatory framework. We need it available right now. We need to boost the projects. We need low administrative barriers. If we have a CCFD designed only in Germany, it's for a small variety of pilot sectors, only for huge industries, and you need like a mass of lawyers for those contracts. So you need it available for energy intensive industry for all sectors. It also has to be available not only for the two big players, but for all the energy intensive industry. There is SMEs, there is family owned businesses, large businesses, but there isn't only the steel industry. And there isn't only BASF, which is a huge chemical player in Germany. So, and we need to decarbonize all the energy intensive industry as fast as possible. We have long investment cycles, so we need the competitive, stable framework right now. I think glass industry is ready. There's a lot of research development. We need some more funding. And Tom mentioned the competitiveness and supporting European industry. He mentioned the CBAM. We need a solution for exports there. So that's also a big role. We need the regulatory framework, but we need also a solution for experts. We need the social acceptance in Europe. We need to tell also the people there will be more windmills, there will be we need the boost of renewable energy right now, and that will change society. We need the power lines and the grid to be massively invested in. We need a competitive low energy price for industry. We need also low grid fees, because we cannot have a low electricity price and then exploding grid fees. So we need to tackle all this right now, and then we can do it. I think glass industry is ready. We're working on our roadmap, and what's really hindering us right now is the energy crisis right now. It's taking away the liquidity, the financial resources that should be invested in new hybrid furnaces. And right now, production is being lowered in Germany. Lines are being turned down and production starting to cease. That's very unfortunate for industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christiana. You really raised some important points, and the whole need for a stable legislative framework. I remember going to the Ceramics Association website, and that's one of the things that they argued. Magdalena, some of the things that about the framework, I mean, is where do we stand with ETS? I mean, how does it affect? And because it has raised its ambition. And but then they're even talking about some new changes to it. I say Magdalena, but I mean I want others to jump in as well.
Yes, thank you, Rod. It's a very important topic for us as well, because we have 1,200 installations in ETS. So it's a lot. It's 10% of all industrial installations, but only 1% of emissions, of industrial emissions, which means that there is many small installations. And what we for sure need is a stability of this framework and the predictability of the ETS. One is, of course, the incredibly skyrocketing prices, which is a burden because it increases the carbon costs. And this is, of course, hit our industry very much in the last months. But another thing that I would like to mention is also the changes that are proposed within the Fit for 55 package. We support the raise of ambitions, but we believe it has to be done in a very delicate, cost-effective manner. And some of the proposals of the Commission raise our concern. For example, the increase of the upper level of the benchmark update. So the Commission is proposing to increase from 1.6 to 2.5% within the second part of ETS phase 4, which means 50% less free allowances for our best performers. This is something which we do not expect, or we didn't expect to happen in the ETS phase 4, because there is no new change in the market. There's no new breakthrough technology that will happen between 2026 and 2030. The changes have just been agreed within the reform of ETS phase 4, and now we have already new proposals to update the benchmarks in a more radical way. Quite high proposal from the Commission. So we hope that the legislators will reflect this and will come back to 1.6 or propose something less than this 50%, which is going to hit our industry. The best performers will be hit as well by very hard.
Okay, I mean, Nick, you and I have talked about ETS, and I just saw you raise your hand to sort of agree with Magdalena. What are your views for your industries?
Well, in some cases, the benchmarks are set at levels that not even best performers can reach. I mean, we're talking about the aluminium industry, for instance, the primary aluminium industry, and we're talking about free allocation, which in the perception of a lot of people is just, handing free money to dirty industry and stuff like that, when in fact, we're faced with free allocation rules and benchmarks that don't even reflect the reality of the best available techniques in our sector. That's surprising. It basically just reflects the linearity of reduction of the benchmarks. So it's absurd. But on that end, I mean, the ETS revision, I fully agree with Magdalena. It's I want to call it premature, but I'm not sure I'm allowed to even say that in the bubbles. The thing is that we've agreed in 2019, 18 and 19 on the rules going forward for phase 4. We wanted to, in Europe, strengthen the price signal. The way I look at it, we're facing a price signal of roughly 1992 euros per ton right now. I don't know how much stronger the price signal has to be, and I'm not sure if, well, the European Commission was obviously not expecting that. So I'm wondering if, aside from being ambitious, we also need to be adaptive a little bit and maybe flexible and look at the reality of the situation and see if it's possible for the European industry to go well, we're not even discussing the extra mile here. We're discussing miles and miles away from existing breakthrough technology. So I'm just saying a bit of pragmatism could really help.
That word pragmatism, when I talked to Christiana, you used that same word last week with me. And we were talking about it in the context of the German context. But we've just been talking about ETS. You're with a German association. How do you get your views across at the Brussels level? Is there an international or is there a Europe-wide association you work with, or do you go directly?
Oh, we work together with the Alliance of Energy Intensive Industries, and we work through our European federation, the Glass Alliance Europe. We also work on a national level and doing everything as much as possible, working from always, because I really see the frustration with the owners of the companies, with the people working there. It seems like there's a big task ahead of us, and now the energy price crisis comes, and there were projects being started, and very good projects, and they're just not flying right now. And the regulatory framework, especially in Germany, has been challenging so much. There was the EEG, the special equalization scheme, and then if you were proven to be energy intensive, it was a big burden to apply for it, and then it was safe for 2 years, and then you had a state aid rule, and then it was totally unsecure. So companies were never knowing how the electricity price would be for how long, if it would be secure. If you invest into a large glass tank, which is half the size of a football field, 700 tons of molten glass a day, and it's running non-stop for 15 to 20 years, you just know what's going to be ahead of you. And that was just not the case. So it's really frustrating. We have some good projects. We have the project which we hope we can do for the furnace of the future, a hybrid furnace with 80% green energy, 20% of gas, potentially H2. It didn't go through the innovation fund. We were, let's say, kicked out second rounds, and it's a wild project. So the techniques there, the motivations there, but it's just a really hard time for industry right now, and we need the financial resources, the regulatory framework, and a competitive electricity price. That's basically what needs to happen for us.
Well, I mean, you bring up some points very, very well, and Tom Berendsen raised some of these issues at the beginning, and I guess in many ways it's a matter of us boosting him in a way. I don't know what the word innovation. I mean, Nick mentioned some new technologies that are needed. We talked about innovation. Christian, when we were talking, I mean, you mentioned even earlier the innovation hub. What's going on? I mean, I know the ETS fund, they've created an innovation fund. Is that going well? But I mean, also your innovation hub, is that strictly for the aluminum industry, or is it wider for energy intensive industries? What's going on, Christian?
Yes, thanks for the question. In fact, yeah, it's a group of members of European Aluminium, let's say, highly committed to innovation and working together. So, and it's clear that we work mostly for the aluminium value chains, but obviously we discuss, we exchange with other sectors, for example, through Spire, so Process for Planet, which is a multi-process industry platforms where you can promote and initiate collaborative projects. And it's clear that decarbonisation and circularity are the two main, let's say, objectives. And we really make concrete projects to address that through pilot projects. And yeah, we are active in now 7 projects, and obviously we try to address other aspects like hydrogen was mentioned, electrification, all these key, let's say, technologies to address decarbonization are at stake, and we really try to bring members and to initiate projects addressing these challenges, let's say so.
But when I talked to Christiana before, she said there's just not enough green. I mean, how big a role can hydrogen play?
Sorry,
if I can, could come. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, please, Christian, please.
I was talking before to Rod, and I said that I'm really afraid that for actual projects to be funded with green hydrogen, the burden for the hydrogen to be classified as green will be just so high that you probably will have like hydrogen being produced from green electricity being labeled as low carbon hydrogen, and then you have a very small amount that's actually meeting those immensely high standards of green hydrogen, and then the funding will only go to green projects, so we will lose so many good projects. So I said, let's be pragmatic. We have such a big way ahead of us. Let's also invest in the solutions that are there right now, and then on the way we will get better, we will get more competitive, we will get the engine running. German way would be, no, let's wait for another 10 years until we are 100% perfect. And I say we have to get on the road right now. And if there's a good project with low carbon hydrogen that's only 70% greener, then let's do it right now.
Magdalena, how do you react to that?
Well, I agree with Christiana. I just wanted to come back also to the Innovation Fund. As you know, there was the first batch already of proposals, and the demand was 22 times higher than the available funds. So this just shows the scale of the challenge. And of course, there are some positive developments in the proposal of the Commission to reform the ETS. One of them is to increase the Innovation Fund and also to increase the scope of the fund, for example, to include the carbon contracts for difference, which is a very interesting instrument for the industry and for decarbonization projects. So we do need more funding, and the proposal of the Commission is good to increase it. But of course, again, the allowances, the resources they use come from the free allowances pot and not from the auctioning pot. So again, our advice here for the Commission would be to increase the fund on using the pot of the auctioning allowances and not the free allowances. This is one of the elements that
Is it through hydrogen, green hydrogen, even though there are difficulties with it? Can we use different types of biomass or biofuels as a feedstock? I mean, where are our breakthroughs going to be in renewables in your industries? Christian, I'll start with you.
Yeah, it's obviously a good question. So to identify the key sourcing. So it's clear that the aluminium industry, we use a lot of hydroelectricity, but when we move to southern countries of Europe, is much less the case. I think that the model that Nick mentioned, this let's say green pool, is probably one of key elements, because you need to aggregate a lot of sourcing, especially from wind and from solar, but some others, so that you can level, let's say, and match the supply and demand, which is the challenge when you have intermittent, let's say, renewable energy. So we work quite a lot on our processes, and it's clear, but we would need to work closely with the energy provider to secure this match, and this is ongoing work. I don't have yet a clear answer, but it will be multiple. All the renewable resources should be there, and maybe some others, maybe nuclear, I don't know, but it's maybe a trend in this aspect as well, and some others, but this is very challenging questions. I don't have yet all the answers.
I don't think anybody has all the answers right now. I just want to, one other area, it came up a little bit, but just the whole area of the carbon border adjustment and carbon leakage. Who wants to, we've only got about 2 minutes, but who wants to come in on that? If we've got some comments that we can send to Tom Berendsen or whatever. Nick, I think you've just opened up your microphone.
I think that probably everybody has their own views on the CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, and well, the proposals that have come out later on with MEP Shaheen's, for instance, report and so on, or the ITRE report and whatever. From where I stand for electro-intensives, it's very crucial to have the Parliament understand that if we modeled that the CBAM applied to indirect emissions would benefit not only the European industry in terms of competitiveness, but also the climate, then we would definitely back it. The reason why we're opposing to indirects being included in the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, indirect emissions, as per the proposal of MEP Shaheen, is because unfortunately it would lead to more carbon leakage. It would lead to resource shuffling, it would lead to massive circumvention, it would lead to huge problems that we have modeled because we know our sector, and hence we would like to tread cautiously in this department, not rush. The Commission has proposed something gradual. I'm not a big fan of the entire CBAM proposal myself, but the way I understand it is that we apparently have to go ahead with it. Let's not go ahead with it for all the wrong reasons. The CBAM is not a pretext to get rid of free allowances and indirect compensation. People may see it like that, but the CBAM is supposed to act as a climate measure, encouraging others and helping reduce global emissions while maintaining competitiveness of the European industry. It's not just, a pretext to lose free allowances within Europe.
I'm going to give each one of you 1 minute to just, and then I'm going to turn to Fabiola, okay? But you've all got 1 minute to. A couple of you told me that we just need to get 1 or 2 main messages across, and we, because we can't flood, whether it's the ITRE committee or anybody. Magdalena, if you were put in front of the president of the European Commission and you're given 1 minute to give what your views are, what would they be?
Well, for sure, we need a stable regulatory framework because there are many challenges within the regulatory framework, but also we need infrastructure, we need access to finance. So these are the conditions, the preconditions for the industry to decarbonize. Of course, we are ready for the challenge. We have our roadmap. We are ready for changes in the industry, but this needs to be accompanied also with a prepared regulatory framework and financial framework.
Great, thanks. Who will Nick, you next. Okay.
Sure. I just want to say that the industry is ready to step up. And I want to just focus on electro-intensives, right? Don't forget electro-intensives. Electro-intensives is not an exercise that's been solved, let's say. So focus is always in the European policy about what we refer to as carbon intensive industries or energy intensive or whatever. But electro-intensives are the front runners of the electrification, which is, by the way, considered a fair solution to this entire exercise. So let's seek out ways, smart ways, not costly ways, but smart ways to solve the problem, the challenges for the decarbonization of the electro-intensive industries, and trust me, others will follow suit. Just one final remark. The climate gets a lot of regulations and stuff. The industry gets a strategy. I think that from a European policy making perspective, I think that's kind of not balanced. And the reason I'm saying it is because the industry can contribute very, very considerably to decarbonization of the European economy.
Great. Christian.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I will stay within the innovation area because this is my topic, and it's clear that we have seen that this is really a need to intensify the funding, especially to the innovation fund, because there would be a lot of demonstrators to be developed in this respect. So I think to connect all this policy with a right, let's say, innovation funding scheme, so that then helping really supporting the European industry, energy-intensive industry, to decarbonize is essential. So this was highlighted today, and I think I would call for that.
Great.
Sure.
Now, Christiana, I said if you had to go in front of the president of the European Commission, but I know she's German. I don't want you to do it in German. I know you would do it quicker in German, but I mean, if you could give us in English what you would say to her, if you had 1 minute.
Let's do it in a pragmatic way. So we can start right now, and the industry needs the support rather than more burden on them, because the task is just so big and we need to start right now. And please tell the population it's going to be really hard for everyone. It's going to be a great transition and we all need to support each other. And industry is a big part of it.
Great. Fabiola, I'm going to turn over to you. What have you, as a researcher for a research institute, taken from everything that we've had? What are your views?
Well, thank you very much, Rod. Well, first of all, I would like to thank the panelists for the interventions and all the attendees for the presence at this event. I hope you're enjoying it, and if you have any questions, I remind you that you can post them in the meeting chat to discuss them later, so feel free to ask. Young students and recent graduates are aware that climate change is a global problem that needs global solutions. And from the point of view of a 27-year-old chemical engineer, which I am, decarbonization of industries plays a major role in the goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2050. But as the panelist says, this is not going to be an easy road. For highlighting some of the points that have been commented on by the panelists, they all agree in the need for a stable framework and the need for finance for innovation. And well, they have said also that the industry is prepared for this transition, but they also need help from the Commission. And well, one point that Nick said is the concept of green pool, which I found it very important for boosting industrial green raw materials, green electricity, and well, the need for the finance. The finance for innovation.
Great. That's a good way to end this session. I want to thank all of you. I think you've all, I mean, I told you we were going to be frustrated. We only had 40 minutes and we would want to do more. And possibly we can have another event where we come together. I think that this is, even though we get frustrated, we brought out a lot of issues. And I mean, obviously there's more, you know. I would have loved to have, when we talked about financing, we need more financing. I mean, what's the role of private money? You know, and we've had the taxonomy rules. So we could have got into a whole bunch of other topics like that, but then we have to be not just pragmatic, we have to be realistic. And the realistic thing is we have a clock. And so I'm going to turn it over to Carolina again. I will come back towards the end, but we have to have a word from our sponsor. And the Renewable Energy for Industry project, it's funded by the EU. Thankfully, we've got programs like Horizon 2020, Horizon Europe, LIFE, Partnership for Planet. I mean, there are a lot of things that bring us together and are really helping. And so now we're going to hear a word from one of these projects that has brought us all together today. Carolina, please.
Thank you very much, Rod. As Rod said, I think it's just the beginning of the discussion, because we have already spoken with the project coordinator, with Circe from Spain, that we are really foreseeing something bigger than 1.5 hours coming up soon, especially by the end of the projects when we have some concrete results. And in the meantime, please allow me just to briefly tell you a few words about the project itself. I'm gonna do it in no time, hopefully, because we're running out of time. And can you see the Okay, that's not this one. Can you see the presentation? Okay, brilliant. So just quickly, a few words about the project itself that brought us all together in here. And the event, I have to highlight this little fact that it's a first dissemination event of the project. We are in the middle of it, and the project title, as you can see, is 100 RE4Industry, renewable energies for the industries. It's, as Rod mentioned, it's a Horizon 2020 still project with a budget of about 3 million. With a contribution of about 3 million euros that started on the 1st September 2020. And as I mentioned before, the project coordinator is Fundación CIRSE from Spain, and we are counting. No, you're not. Oh, sorry.
No, I don't see it. And
okay, I'm not sure why I'm not seeing this.
I see KD.
Okay, you should be seeing my presentation. Okay. Thank you for mentioning. What is? Can I show you screens? Okay, so I don't know why you're seeing another one. Just.
I'm not seeing anyone.
Okay, and some people are seeing something other.
Okay.
That's why we are in a need of a normal meeting, because I have nothing else switched on, and there's something apparently different on the. Okay. I will try to do again. Can you see now? Anna? Okay, good. We managed. Rod, can you see the presentation?
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you for mentioning it, and yeah, that's the need of a physical meeting and not. Okay, so you see the presentation. That's good. We have. I was saying that we have the project coordinator from Spain, Fundación CIRSE, and we've got 11 different partners from 6 countries. Here you can see the exact composition of our consortium, that is well composed of experts, technical and social experts. We've got renewable energy oriented association and energy intensive industries representatives as well with us. I'm not going to get into the context, because the context was already set up by everyone that was speaking before, with Rod, the Tom, and our distinguished panelists. But what are the goals of the project itself? First of all, the main goal is to set a multi-actor collaborative network that I'm gonna speak about in a few slides a little bit more, that is supporting this transition, that it's making it possible and doable for energy industries, energy intensive industries. Also to verify which renewable energy technologies are suitable to be used for energy intensive industries and support the transition. Also, we would like to construct a stable policy framework and market framework to allow the competitiveness of renewables based in the energy intensive industries goods that we have already spoken as well before. And we would like to have the common understanding and vision of the role of the industries that they have to play by 2030 and 2050. Also, what is important is to involve and to inform the European society about this change that Christine already referred to as well, that it's gonna be part of this transition itself. We want to also share the success stories of the energy industries that already are adopting innovative solutions. We have settled short-term vision and long-term vision for the results in the project. We are talking here about the technology options, about the current sector needs that we tackled through the discussion. I'm not gonna get into it because Manolis in a second is gonna showcase some concrete cases from different sectors and what's already has been established within the project. But I will mention just the methodology that we are using within our project that is focused on some concrete action market access. So what we are putting a strong focus on is on a dialogue, and a dialogue within the energy intensive industry sector and with the organizations that are around them. We are aiming for a very strong engagement strategy following a multi-actor approach. We are reviewing the technologies that can be adopted by 2050. We are working on recommendations for the uptake of renewable energy by the sector and advocacy. We are talking still about the multiplication and replication of the solutions that are gonna be elaborated within the project, and we're focusing also on a very solid communication and dissemination strategy. What I mentioned before is one of the aims of the projects is to build a strong collaborative network. Our panelists, Nick, Christine, Magdalena, and Christian, are all of them part of one of the experts group that we have in here. What we've done in the project is we divided this collaborative network in 4, let's say, different elements. We've got the RE4Industry clusters, and there are more like technical experts focusing on this technical feedback. We've got the RE4Industry expert groups that are sector oriented, like Magdalena. We have the RE4Industry committee that are the policy and advocacy oriented experts at national level, last Christine, and of course the European committee that Christian and Nick are being part of, that is the highest level group of the RE4Industry that is really shaping and transferring the solution to the policy making side. In here you have a short overview of how the project is organized and implemented. So apart of engaging the target and key actors, what we do is we verify and establish what are the best practices, and we share the best practices within the sector. We are working on case studies that my colleague Manolis is gonna show you in a few minutes, and we are also working on short and long-term innovative energy solutions for the sector and for the full decarbonization of it. And every element of the projects is strongly supported by knowledge transfer through replication activities that is gonna still come in the second part of the project, and of course the dissemination and communication. And in this moment I would strongly encourage you to join us, to follow us on our social media, where we publish relevant information on the progress and results, and also on our website. So Manolis, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Carolina, for the introduction. I would like now to say a few things about some of the more concrete, results or expected results that we're going to have in the project. Being, let's say, a researcher, I like to be a little more hands-on about what we are going to do. And we have in this project, we're happy to have 3 industrial case studies, real industries with different set of products involved in different sectors, as well as different energy requirements, both regarding the energy sources they are consuming as well as their volume. So all of them, as you will see, have quite concrete decarbonization goals by 2030. By 2050, the aim is more or less to go for carbon neutrality anyway. So it's interesting for us to see what solutions we are going to be able to find together with them. It's always an iterative process and a collaborative process, and not something that that researchers suggest and then it's not implemented. We are always interested to suggest solutions that can indeed be taken up by the industry. So the first case is in the Netherlands, Corbion. It's within, I would say, the chemical industry, a global market leader in the production of lactic acids and its derivatives, and supplier of emulsifiers, functional enzymes, blends, minerals, vitamins, and algae ingredients. The company has the goal to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions along along its total supply chain, so both Scope 1 and 2, as well as Scope 3 emissions, by 33% compared to 2016. And of course, this will require different solutions depending on the supply chain step. Explicitly within the project, we are focusing on substitution of one of its main energy requirements at the moment, a natural gas-fired steam boiler, and we are looking into different alternatives from electrification to biogenic solutions or hydrogen, for example. And this is an activity supported by BTG, the technical partner from the Netherlands. Next slide, please. Then our second case study is in northern Spain, Sidenor. It's a leader in the EU for the steel industry for production of long products, rails, wires, and so on, and cold finished products. The company wants to reduce its carbon emissions by 60% till 2030, and it uses a different array of energy sources and materials, electricity, natural gas, as well as hard coal. So within the project, we are already starting to look into different solutions. For example, coal could be potentially substituted by biochar, for example. And this is a process supported by CIRSE, our technical partner from Spain, as well as the project coordinator of RE4Industry. And the last but not least case study, the one in which Nick is working actually in his daily life, Aluminium of Greece, part of Mytilineos, the only, as far as I know, vertically integrated aluminum producer in Europe, probably one of the few in the world, if not the only one again globally, and also the largest electricity consumer in Greece, about 2.9 terawatt hours per year. This is equivalent to, I would say, a base load unit of 330 megawatts electrical, more or less. And of course, you need much more capacity when you substitute this with renewable energy sources. Apart from this, the industry is also a very big natural gas consumer, both directly in several of its processes as well as indirectly. Nearby the plant itself, there is an energy complex also owned by Mytilineos, which produces electricity for the grid and steam for some of the internal processes itself. The company also wants to be a leader in the green metallurgy of green aluminium. So by 2030, they want to reduce by 65% their absolute emissions and by 75% the relative emissions as measured by ton of aluminium produced. And unlike all the companies in our project, go for net zero by 2050. As Nick presented very eloquently, and I think I can never surpass this, Aluminium of Greece is an electro-intensive industry, so for sure there is a big need to decarbonize electricity production, and the Green Pool initiative is actually something that is considered now by the Greek state as well as the funding mechanism, support mechanism for achieving this. So within the RE4Industry, of course, we are taking this as I would say, framework conditions, but we are also looking into the possibilities for decarbonizing the natural gas consumption within the industrial complex itself. So we are looking into solutions like, for example, biomethane or hydrogen that could decarbonize these emissions as well. And it is my organization, CERT, that is supporting this solution. So I hope that till the end of the project, when we're having another and bigger event, we're going to be able to give you some more indications or solutions that we are actually going to consider for application, or maybe we even have some real applications by that time. And the other thing I would like to present briefly is a tool that we have developed in the project. I think we have together with us quite a few young researchers, as well as probably industry associations. So I think it's a quite nice visual tool. It's a map that is built using the open data, I would say, from the EU ETS database. So which are the greenhouse gas emitters in the EU. We took this data, we transferred them to a map, and I think it's a quite nice, visually appealing exercise to see quickly where, I think we lost, okay. To see which are the emitters and how also the emissions are going down in Europe, both let's say in total as well as per specific sector. And if you go a little further on. You can already access the tool on our project website, and you can see many of its functions. I think it's quite self-explanatory, but you will see, for example, you can filter and see emissions by the aluminum, the cement industry, or whatever. You can order installations by the magnitude of their emissions and so on. And we have even started now a process in the final slide, I think, of showcasing success examples. So we have examples of industries that have already started using renewable energy for their sourcing, and you can quickly find them using this tool and read some more information about there and be directed to their company websites for even more information. I think that's all from my side for now.
Thank both of you very much for us to understand. Okay, our organization is involved. I'm working with Carolina, but it's also good to have reminded over the overview of what we're trying to achieve. In just a couple of minutes, I just want to say a couple points. I was quite taken by Tom Berendsen's call for we need a spirit of cooperation, and that we need, but this brings responsibilities. The whole question of reciprocity. Now, we don't have anybody from the Commission or the Council here. We had somebody from Parliament here, but that was it. But whether it's, he mentioned the fact that we need more infrastructure. Infrastructure includes our grid, includes possibly our green pool, and how much this concept is getting played in Brussels, I have no idea. At the same time, and I think it was Magdalena that brought it up first, was the whole issue of pragmatism. We have to be realistic about what we can do, and in terms of timing. Everybody says we want to do something, we have to do things quickly. But we have to do things realistically, not to hurt our industry, not to hurt our jobs, not to hurt our societies. I can't get over what Christian was saying about innovation, because we can't say that enough. And I mean, the RE4Industry project itself is about innovation. And the other projects that are funded through a Partnership for Planet, through the SPIRE process, Horizon 2020, now Horizon Europe, and in Life, how important they are. And also the innovation comes in the fact that you can have people from Greece working with people from Germany, working with people from Spain or whatever. And so we've overcome languages, we've overcome cultures, and we've been really trying to find sort of a very Europe-wide approach to it. I mean, we're not like America. We're not like Japan. We're not like China. We're a different beast in that sense, and that's the beauty of Europe. And we need. There are a lot of things that we have to do. There's no question. We have to, as Christiana said, we have to lower administrative barriers, and there's so many things that have to be done. We have to look at that border mechanism to see how things happen. So we've just teased a lot of these issues today. I just want to read you one comment that was in the chat. We used to throw garbage at the end of our garden. Then in the river, it took it away. Today, far away is somebody else's, it's in somebody else's garden. And we have to start solving the problems locally. This is a local project, remember. And we cannot move industry elsewhere, as we will get emissions back anyway. We will only lose jobs. We need to accept initially higher costs of being sustainable and prevent unfair competition. I think that's a very good comment that was said. This is a long road between now and 2050, but I mean, when you look at what's happened, what was said in the IPCC report, or what we said in the Paris Agreement, we don't have, in terms of really getting control over our emissions, we don't have between now and 2050. We've got to be doing it now. And the question we had on the renovation wave was quite relevant. We're supposed to be renovating 3.5 million buildings a year. We're not. But do we have the glass for it? Do we have the insulation for it? Do we have the aluminium for it? Do we have the steel for it? No. So we couldn't even, we haven't put the pieces together for even doing the renovation wave. And all those pieces reflect a different aspect of industry. We keep forgetting that. And I mean, I work a lot with people in DG Energy, and that's some of the things they don't, the renovation wave itself doesn't, we're still working in silos too much. And I think what we have to realize is that this is much more collaborative. Tom talked about the spirit of cooperation, but it's also the rigor of cooperation. We have to have that rigor and that discipline of cooperation and reciprocity. Anyway, so that's where we are. Fabiola, I said I would give you a couple more minutes. What's your view?
Well, I think the industry is ready to step up. They can contribute to the decarbonization, but they need help in terms of innovation and stable framework to reach that objective. But well, new generations, we are ready to face this huge challenge of being carbon neutral by 2050.
Great, thank you very much. Alessandro, I know you're not speaking today, but I want to congratulate you and Circe for hiring Fabiola, okay? And I think this is, so I had some time with her last week and a little bit today, and I think this is exactly the generation we need, okay? And so more power to your organization. I'm really pleased with that. As I mentioned before, some chairman's conclusions. And if you've got a few more words, any of you, I mean, audience or whatever, if you've got some things that we should be, some of the points we should be stressing to the Tom Berendsens of this world, to the ITRE committee, or to the permanent reps of the in council, or to the commission itself. I mean, even when the commission, we're talking about DG Klima, we're talking about DG Environment, we're talking about DG Energy, we're talking about DG Grow, we're talking about all the people dealing with taxation. I mean, we're not just talking about one DG. It's not that simple. And 10 years ago, it used to be quite simple because I would just get on the email to Peter Handley, who's now the head of unit for energy intensive industries in DG Grow, because he was in the Secretary General's office and he just oversaw all of it. And we're not doing enough of that right now in terms of, I think that's a weakness inside the commission itself that we have to overcome somehow. And they all come together in the ITRE committee for our purposes, but these do add problems. And it's also added problems that, I mean, Nick was telling me that he would normally be going to Brussels once a week. Well, I probably was as well. But I mean, you can't go sit and talk to these people over a cup of coffee or have lunch with them in Place Jourdain or a meeting in the Borchette building. I mean, all of those is like another world that we've almost forgotten about now, you know? And but it's really important. All of those elements are incredibly important, that human element. And so the more we can bring the human side into it, the better. So if we can bring the chairman's conclusions, make it human, and instead of a stiff report, fine. The other thing is, in terms of, I just want to stress, and maybe there can be some more. In terms of the proactiveness of our associations, we've seen that people are producing their roadmaps. They're revising the ones from 2012. The industry is getting its act together. We see that manifestos. We see the European Aluminium, I think, has produced a manifesto. And this is exactly what we need. And we need to be hearing more of these things. And that industry isn't just sitting passive, waiting for the grid to be green or for the ITRE committee to do this and that. There is this interaction that's really important. And so when Tom talks about the spirit of cooperation and the whole issue of reciprocity, he's absolutely right. And you know, it's more credit to him that he said he used to visit many energy intensive industries. It's very difficult right now. And so is it going to get better? Hopefully it's going to get better. Anyway, hopefully our consortium will have a little meeting and sort of figure out what we're going to be doing in terms of having future webinars in the future. If you belong to a different organization and want to organize one, invite us, okay? I think these are things that we've got to keep talking, and we've got to keep bringing these issues together, and the sharing, whether it's the ceramic industry and the glass industry and the non-ferrous metals or the aluminum or iron and steel or other industries. I mean, there's some common points, but there's some others that aren't so common. And so, but they all get shoved together in the ITRE committee to be discussed there. So on behalf of Renewable Energy for Industry, I would like to thank all the organizers for putting this together. I'd like to thank all of the panelists. Hopefully somebody could thank Tom Berendsen. I think this is, and for Circe to do the technical organization of getting us on Teams and keeping us on Teams and that. And I know I've enjoyed it. I hope you have, and hopefully we'll meet again in the near future. Thank you so much.
Rod, if you allow me, before we end up this wonderful webinar, I would like to use this occasion to invite everyone to the event that is going to be organized on the 22nd of February by one of our partners, by Bioenergy Europe, also in the framework of the EU Industry Days. And it's an event dedicated to disruptive bioenergy technologies. So please join them as well in their discussion. And thank you very much to you, Rod, for this amazing moderation, and to our panelists. And I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for the next one to come.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks a lot. Have a nice day.
Thank you,
Rod.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.